Smell, taste, and pheromones are not just sensory experiences. They are powerful modulators of human behavior, emotion, and decision-making, operating through deep, ancient circuits in the brain. These systems bypass conscious thought and directly influence the limbic system, which governs memory, motivation, and emotion. The olfactory system, unlike other senses, connects directly to the amygdala and hippocampus without needing to route through the thalamus. That means scent can trigger a vivid emotional memory or behavioral response in milliseconds, often before we're even aware of it. The smell of a specific cologne, a familiar dish, or even someone's natural body odor can evoke desire, aversion, trust, or nostalgia, not because we're choosing those responses, but because our biology is. Taste, similarly, doesn't just help us decide what's edible, it calibrates our reward system. Sweet, salty, umami flavors activate dopamine pathways, reinforcing preferences and motivating future behavior. Bitter or sour tastes, often linked to toxins in nature, trigger protective aversion and even influence our stress response. But the influence of these senses becomes even more nuanced when we consider pheromones, chemical signals that humans unconsciously emit and detect. Though we may not smell them in a traditional sense, pheromones affect our attraction, bonding, aggression, and even reproductive readiness. They interact with the vomeronasal organ and shape behavior below conscious awareness. Research shows that people can detect immune compatibility, emotional states, and stress levels through scent-based cues, and that these cues subtly guide whom we trust, whom we avoid, and whom we feel drawn to. In social settings, these chemical signals contribute to group cohesion, territorial behavior, and mate selection. Ultimately, smell, taste, and pheromones form a silent language, one that speaks directly to the brain's survival and social circuitry. They shape what we desire, whom we approach, and how we connect, long before we ever speak a word. Smell, taste, and pheromones influence behavior through ancient brain circuits. These senses bypass conscious processing and directly affect areas like the amygdala and hippocampus, shaping emotion and memory instantly. Scent has a direct neurological link to emotion and memory. Unlike other senses, smell connects directly to the brain's emotional and memory centers, allowing it to trigger powerful behavioral responses within milliseconds. Taste modulates the brain's reward and aversion systems. Sweet, salty, and umami tastes reinforce pleasurable behavior via dopamine, while bitter and sour flavors activate protective responses. Pheromones operate below conscious awareness to guide social and sexual behavior. These chemical cues are detected unconsciously and influence attraction, bonding, aggression, and even fertility cues. Scent-based cues help detect emotional states and compatibility. Humans can perceive stress, immune system compatibility, and mood through scent, affecting who we trust, avoid, or feel drawn to. These sensory signals form a non-verbal communication system. Smell, taste, and pheromones create a silent language that shapes our desires, relationships, and social interactions long before words are used. Smell, taste, and pheromones are rooted in some of the oldest, most primal circuits of the human brain, and they profoundly shape behavior through mechanisms that operate beneath conscious awareness. These sensory systems are directly linked to the limbic brain, the emotional and motivational core responsible for fear, reward, memory, and instinctual reactions. Unlike visual or auditory information, which first passes through the thalamus for processing and filtering, olfactory signals have a direct route to the amygdala and hippocampus. This anatomical structure is why smell can evoke such immediate and emotionally intense responses. A single scent can trigger a flood of memories or alter your mood in seconds, often without any deliberate thought. Taste, similarly, taps into reward pathways that determine not only what we like or dislike, but also what we seek out repeatedly. For example, sweet and fatty flavors trigger dopamine release in the brain's reward centers, reinforcing the desire to consume those foods. This mechanism was crucial for survival when high-calorie foods were scarce, but in the modern world, it can lead to behavioral patterns like overeating or craving comfort foods under stress. Bitter and sour tastes, which in evolutionary terms were often indicators of toxicity or spoilage, activate avoidance responses. These reactions are fast, instinctual, and require no cognitive reasoning, just a rapid behavioral shift to protect the body. Pheromones, although more subtle, influence human behavior through the vomeronasal system and the hypothalamus, modulating social instincts like mating, bonding, and territoriality. These chemical messengers trigger biological and emotional changes in others, altering mood, attraction, and even levels of trust. Together, these three sensory pathways form a foundational layer of human behavior, shaping how we connect to the world, avoid danger, and make instinctive choices long before we ever rationalize them. Scent has a uniquely direct and powerful connection to the brain's emotional and memory centers, making it one of the most behaviorally influential senses we possess. Unlike visual or auditory inputs, which must be routed through the thalamus before reaching higher processing centers, olfactory information travels straight to the amygdala and hippocampus, regions deeply involved in emotional regulation, fear processing, and memory formation. This direct wiring is why a single whiff of a certain perfume, a food, or even the scent of rain can instantly transport someone back to a childhood moment, a relationship, or a place tied to deep emotional significance. These associations are not merely mental, they are physical responses embedded in the nervous system. When a particular scent is repeatedly paired with an emotional experience, positive or negative, it becomes a conditioned cue, capable of triggering that emotional state almost automatically. For example, the smell of a hospital disinfectant might induce anxiety in someone who's experienced trauma or loss in a medical setting, while the scent of fresh bread might produce calm and comfort tied to home and safety. These reactions don't require conscious thought or intention. The olfactory system works as an early warning and reward detection mechanism, preparing the body to act based on patterns it has stored through experience. This biological design has evolutionary value. It allows humans to detect and react to environmental cues with speed and precision. Whether avoiding danger, identifying food, or recognizing kin, smell operates like a behavioral compass. In social situations, natural body odors and personal scents can influence perception, mood, and behavior without a word being spoken. From building trust to generating attraction or discomfort, scent plays a central role in shaping how we feel, respond, and remember. And it does so almost entirely beneath the surface of conscious awareness. Taste is not simply about enjoying food. It is a fundamental system for guiding behavior through the brain's reward and aversion circuits. When we taste something, our body immediately begins evaluating whether it is safe, beneficial, or potentially harmful. This judgment happens on both a sensory and a neurochemical level. Sweet, salty, and umami tastes activate the brain's dopaminergic reward pathways, reinforcing pleasurable experiences and motivating us to seek those flavors again. These preferences are deeply rooted in survival. Sweetness signals caloric energy, salt indicates essential minerals, and umami reflects protein, rich food sources. When these tastes are consumed, the brain releases dopamine in areas like the nucleus accumbens, creating a feedback loop that not only makes us enjoy what we're eating, but compels us to repeat the behavior. On the other hand, bitter and sour tastes typically serve as warning signals. In nature, bitterness often indicated toxicity or spoilage, and sourness could suggest fermentation or unripe fruit, both potentially dangerous. As a result, the brain responds with immediate aversion, sometimes triggering facial expressions or even gag reflexes before any conscious decision is made. This rapid sensory processing is protective and highly adaptive, especially in environments where food safety was uncertain. However, in modern contexts, these hardwired responses can influence eating habits in complex ways. For instance, people may avoid nutrient-rich vegetables due to bitterness, or develop habitual cravings for sweet and salty processed foods that overstimulate the reward system. Beyond nutrition, taste interacts with emotional states. Stress, for example, can alter taste perception, heightening cravings for high sugar or high fat foods due to cortisol's influence on reward sensitivity. Likewise, emotional eating patterns often emerge from the brain's association between certain tastes and comfort. Ultimately, taste is a behavioral driver, shaping habits, preferences, and decision-making through a constant conversation between the tongue, brain, and nervous system. Pheromones are chemical signals emitted by the body that influence human behavior in profound, yet largely unconscious ways. While we may not detect them with traditional olfactory awareness, they are processed through specialized receptors, particularly the vomeronasal organ, which sends signals directly to regions of the brain associated with instinctual behavior, such as the hypothalamus. This brain structure governs core survival functions like reproduction, stress regulation, aggression, and bonding. Pheromones essentially function as silent communicators, carrying information about an individual's genetic makeup, hormonal state, emotional condition, and even fertility. These signals can subtly influence how we feel about someone, how much we trust them, or how strongly we are attracted to them, often before we've had any conscious interaction. Research has shown that pheromones can affect everything from romantic attraction to maternal bonding. In mate selection, for instance, individuals are often drawn to the scent of someone whose immune system is genetically different from their own, likely an evolutionary mechanism designed to promote healthy offspring through greater genetic diversity. In social and sexual contexts, pheromones may play a role in synchronizing menstrual cycles among women, enhancing feelings of connection between partners, and even increasing assertiveness or competitiveness in men exposed to certain male pheromones. These chemical cues also influence non-romantic social behavior. For example, the scent of stress-related pheromones in another person's sweat can trigger anxiety or alertness in those nearby, acting as an invisible warning system. This kind of subconscious communication affects how we navigate group dynamics, perceive emotional states, and make decisions about trust and alliance. Unlike language or body language, pheromones bypass cognitive processing and generate direct physiological and emotional responses. They function as an ancient behavioral code, shaping interactions long before our rational mind has a chance to interpret or understand what's actually happening. Scent-based cues play a surprisingly important role in how we detect and respond to emotional states and compatibility with others, often without conscious awareness. The human body continuously emits subtle chemical signals through skin, sweat, breath, and bodily fluids, many of which carry information about mood, stress levels, immune system activity, and even hormonal fluctuations. Our olfactory system is designed to pick up on these cues, even if we don't consciously recognize them as smells. This capacity allows us to unconsciously assess whether someone is calm, anxious, afraid, or confident, and our brain adjusts our own behavior in response. One fascinating aspect of this sensory ability is how it impacts relationship dynamics and mate selection. Studies have shown that people can detect genetic compatibility, particularly related to immune system markers, through scent. Individuals are often more attracted to the natural body odor of those who are immunologically different from themselves, which may be a subconscious strategy to ensure healthier offspring. In friendships and social bonding, we may be drawn toward individuals whose scent triggers feelings of safety, comfort, or familiarity, even when we can't articulate why. Scent-based emotional detection is also deeply tied to empathy. When we unconsciously pick up on another person's emotional state through their scent, such as sweat produced during fear or sadness, our brain activates related emotional circuits in response. This is part of a larger system of co-regulation, where we mirror or adapt to the internal states of others in our environment. It's a silent form of emotional communication that influences trust, attachment, and rapport. These cues can steer our choices, who we sit next to, who we avoid, who we feel close to, and they do so automatically, Smell acts as a filter, constantly shaping how we interpret people and respond to their emotional presence, without ever needing a word to be spoken. Smell, taste, and pheromones together form a complex, nonverbal communication system that silently shapes human interaction, attraction, behavior, and memory. This sensory language operates beneath the surface of consciousness, using chemical signals to influence how we interpret our environment and the people within it. Long before we speak or make logical assessments, our bodies are already responding to cues that tell us whether someone is safe, familiar, attractive, anxious, or even deceptive. These signals trigger immediate changes in brain chemistry, guiding emotional and physiological responses in a way that feels intuitive, but is actually biologically driven. Smell, for instance, can evoke trust or caution simply by reminding us of past experiences, while taste reinforces social bonds, such as sharing meals that signal group inclusion and emotional closeness. Pheromones extend this system even further by silently modulating interpersonal dynamics, from increasing attraction between potential partners to influencing dominance and social positioning in groups. These cues are powerful because they bypass rational thought and directly impact areas of the brain associated with survival, reproduction, and emotional regulation. What makes this silent language so influential is that it creates behavioral shifts without requiring any awareness. We may lean closer to someone without knowing why, feel uneasy around another person despite no apparent reason, or feel an immediate sense of calm in someone's presence, all because of subconscious chemical signaling. In essence, this system allows the body to communicate faster than the mind, preparing us to respond appropriately to different social and environmental contexts. Together, these sensory inputs orchestrate a hidden layer of human interaction that is constantly shaping decisions about who we trust, desire, avoid, or embrace. While we may believe our behavior is driven purely by logic or personality, these underlying signals are playing a continuous, powerful role in guiding how we connect, react, and relate. Our senses of smell, taste, and pheromonal detection form a hidden but powerful layer of human communication that shapes behavior at the deepest levels. Long before logic or language come into play, our brain and body are already responding to chemical signals that influence how we feel, who we're drawn to, and how we navigate the world around us. These cues operate silently, yet they govern trust, desire, memory, and even group dynamics with extraordinary precision. Understanding this unseen sensory language reveals that much of our behavior isn't just a matter of conscious choice. It's a dialogue between biology and environment, constantly unfolding beneath awareness. To truly understand ourselves and our relationships, we must listen not just to what's said, but to what's sensed.